What if one narrow waterway could crash the global economy? What if a regional war in the Middle East could reshape global power politics for the next decade? Right now, the escalating conflict between the US and Iran threatens to do exactly that. In today's video on the geopolitical chessboard, we'll break down what's really happening in the US Iran conflict, why it matters for the global economy, and the four possible ways this war could end. What triggered the war? The current conflict erupted after large scale strikes by the US and Israel against Iranian military infrastructure. The targets included missile bases, command centers, and critical energy facilities. Washington's objective was clear: cripple Iran's military capabilities, limit its missile arsenal, and stop its nuclear ambitions. But Iran could never match the United States in conventional military power. Instead, it responded with a strategy it has mastered for decades: asymmetric warfare. Iran began launching missiles and drones, targeting US bases in the region, threatening Gulf oil infrastructure, and mobilizing its network of proxy militias across the Middle East. Very clearly, what started as a military confrontation began transforming into a regional geopolitical crisis. The strategic battlefield. Militarily, the United States and Israel possess overwhelming technological superiority. Their air forces can strike deep inside Iran with precision weapons, satellite intelligence, and advanced cyber warfare capabilities. Thousands of targets have reportedly been hit, including air defenses and strategic infrastructure. But Iran's strategy was never about winning a conventional war. Instead, Iran is playing the long game. It has spent decades building what analysts call the axis of resistance, a network of allied militias and political groups across the Middle East. These include Hezbollah in Lebanon, militias in Iraq, and other regional actors capable of attacking US allies. This network allows Iran to expand the battlefield far beyond its own territory. Instead of fighting the United States directly, Iran can raise the cost of war by destabilizing the entire region. And this brings us to the most dangerous element of this conflict: the strait that controls global oil. At the heart of this geopolitical crisis lies a narrow body of water known as the Strait of Hormuz. This passage connects the Persian Gulf to the global oceans, and it is one of the most important economic choke points on the planet. Roughly 20% of the world's oil supply passes through this narrow corridor. If shipping through the strait is disrupted, global oil prices can surge almost overnight. Even limited attacks on tankers or shipping lanes can cause massive economic ripple effects. And that is exactly the leverage Iran possesses. By threatening the flow of energy through the Strait of Hormuz, Iran can transform a regional war into a global economic crisis. Oil prices have already surged dramatically during the conflict, reminding the world just how fragile the global energy supply chains can be. The four possible endgames. So, where does this war go from here? There are four realistic scenarios analysts are watching closely. Scenario 1: Negotiated ceasefire. The most historically common outcome is a negotiated ceasefire. As the conflict escalates, economic pressure and international diplomacy can push both sides towards negotiations. The United States would likely demand limits on Iran's nuclear power and missile capabilities. Iran, in return, would seek relief from sanctions and security guarantees. Neither side achieves total victory, but both avoid a prolonged regional war. Scenario 2, a long regional proxy war. This may actually be the most likely outcome. Even if Iran's military is weakened, its regional allies can continue fighting. Conflicts could erupt across multiple fronts: Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, and the Gulf region. In this scenario, the war evolves into a prolonged proxy conflict similar to the Syrian civil war. Direct clashes between major powers remain limited, but regional instability persists for years. Scenario 3, Iranian regime collapse. A third possibility is internal political collapse within Iran. Sustained military strikes combined with economic pressure could weaken Iran's political system. If domestic unrest spreads or elite factions begin to fracture, the government could face instability. However, this scenario is extremely unpredictable. Iran has a population of nearly 90 million people and powerful security forces. A regime collapse could lead not to stability but to prolonged internal conflict. Scenario 4, a major Middle East war. The final scenario is the most dangerous. If the conflict pulls in more regional powers, such as Saudi Arabia, Turkey, or additional Gulf states, the war could expand dramatically. A closure of the Strait of Hormuz or large scale attacks on oil infrastructure could trigger a broader regional confrontation. This would become the largest Middle Eastern war in decades. Why the whole world is watching? The reason this war matters globally is simple. It touches three critical systems that keep the global economy functioning. First, energy supply. A disruption in Middle Eastern oil exports affects every major economy on earth. Second, regional stability. The Middle East remains one of the most geopolitically sensitive regions in the world. Third, great power competition. Countries like China and Russia are closely watching the conflict. China depends heavily on Middle Eastern energy supplies, while Russia benefits from rising oil prices. This means the conflict is not just a regional war, it is part of the broader geopolitical rivalry shaping the 21st century. The United States may dominate the battlefield militarily, but Iran's strategy is to expand the conflict economically and regionally. The result is a geopolitical chess match where every move has global consequences. And on the geopolitical chessboard, this is exactly the kind of conflict that could reshape the balance of power in the Middle East for years to come. If you found this analysis insightful, make sure to subscribe to the Geopolitical Chessboard for deeper breakdowns of the forces shaping global conflicts.